Welcome back, guys. Today we're jumping back in once again to talk about delta neutral strategies. We know the market has been pulling back a little bit over the past few weeks, and so that makes me think about what are the different types of strategies I can be executing on in order to generate yield and cash flow, even if the market is moving sideways and even pulling back a little bit. So we want to focus in on delta neutral strategies to show you exactly how you can cash flow and earn yield in this type of market. And in today's example, we're going to be looking at a DEX called GMX on the Arbitrum network, along with a protocol called Dolomite. So what we're looking at here is the GMX decentralized exchange, and GMX is quite an established DEX in the crypto space. And what GMX allows traders to do is essentially trade perpetuals and derivatives over here on their dashboard. And again, traders can use leverage in order to actually lever up their positions when trading different types of assets. The delta neutral strategy we're going to be looking at today involves this particular asset link or chain link that many of you might be familiar with. But for derivative and perpetual traders over on GMX, you can essentially long and short assets like Link by using leverage. Okay, the way this particular strategy works is by us purchasing the GM Link USD token, which is essentially a yield-bearing counterparty risk token, which we'll explain in a moment. But to kick things off, I just wanted to give a quick overview of GMX because, like I mentioned, GMX has been growing for a number of years in the crypto space. We've got over $400 million of total value locked on GMX. That has peaked up even as high as about 700 million here at certain periods over the past year or two. So GMX is very popular and gets a lot of use with the crypto DeFi space. So if we jump back over to GMX, you can see that I was saying we can use leverage in order to trade and lever up our long and short positions for certain assets. However, obviously, as a result of doing that, there are certain fees to pay. You have to pay opening and closing fees in order to create those long and short positions, and you also have to pay a funding rate in order to keep them open for a given period of time. So like I was saying, the strategy we're going to be using here is a vault over on Dolomite that allows us to create a delta neutral play using the GM Link USD token. But what is the GM Link USD token? Well, if we come over to the earn area on the GMX exchange, we can scroll down here and we can see all of these GM pools. Okay, the one we're looking at today, like I mentioned, is the Link USD GM Link USD token and pool. So what we're doing here is we're essentially purchasing the Link USD pool or token here. And what we're doing is we're essentially acting as the counterparty for all of the people who are longing and shorting Link over on the GMX exchange. So remember I said that these people have to pay opening and closing fees and funding fees in order to keep their long and short positions open. Well, when they're paying all those fees, that is what is essentially feeding into the appreciation of the GM Link USD token because it is a yield-bearing counterparty risk token. Okay, so the first step in this process is for us to actually purchase some GM Link USD. And again, the prerequisite here is that you're going to have your wallet connected over on GMX. On the Arbitrum network, you're going to need to have it funded with a token like USDC in order to purchase some GM Link USD, but you're also going to need some Ethereum in there for gas purposes. Okay, the reason we're purchasing this GM Link USD is because that is the token that we need to use for this looped GM Link USD strategy over on Dolomite. Okay, if I jump over here and click on create position, you can see that Dolomite is essentially a protocol that allows us to create these looped delta neutral strategies in order to earn and generate yield. So again, you can see this strategy utilizes GM Link USD as collateral in order to borrow Link, and then it uses that Link to swap and buy even more GM Link USD and loops it back in. The strategy is delta neutral since the link components of the debt and looped collateral cancel each other out, leaving only USD exposure, and the strategy earns interest in the form of GM Link USD price appreciation. And just like I said a moment ago, the GM Link USD price appreciation comes from the traders who are paying opening and closing fees and funding fees in order to execute those long and short positions on the GMX exchange. Okay, you can also see that the 31-day average for the APR this particular strategy has been yielding is about 38%. It's been giving about 26.6% over the past few weeks, or at least at the current moment in time. And what I have noticed is that when the market is pulling back a bit, we see that these yields are down ever so slightly compared to when the market is actually moving upwards. So again, earning somewhere between 27 and 40% APR is really not that bad for a delta neutral strategy. That means that we do have essentially no risk of impermanent loss. Okay, jumping back over here, like I was mentioning, you do have to purchase GM Link USD and have that as a token in your wallet in order to be able to execute this strategy. So you want to go ahead and purchase that GM Link USD over here directly on GMX by purchasing whatever amount you want to here. And then when you come back over to Dolomite, when you actually want to create this position, you click on create position and you do have to deposit that GM Link USD into Dolomite. So it's not the exact same as some other DEXs where you might be used to providing liquidity, where you simply just deploy the liquidity straight into the pool. Technically here you have to deposit the GM Link USD into Dolomite, and then you actually have to open the position and deposit the GM Link into the strategy itself thereafter. So just making sure you take those two particular steps if you actually want to go ahead and open up and execute this strategy. Okay, so I did this over the past couple of days. You can see I've got an open active strategy here for looped GM Link USD, and it's currently yielding about 26.49%. You can go in and manage your position from here. You have the ability to see all of the data. You can see that I have about 473 GM Link USD, which is worth about $990. Again, by the time I actually created this position with $1,000, by the time I executed the swaps, purchased GM Link USD and paid the gas, when I originally entered this position, it was worth about $985. So it's had about $5 in price appreciation over the past 24 hours or so. Again, currently yielding 26.49%. The 30-day average is up higher, closer to 37, 38%. And what I'm excited about is the fact that I can generate yield here in a relatively safe manner. This is not without its risks. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm able to cash flow somewhere between 3 to 4% on a monthly basis without that risk of locking in any or excessive impermanent loss. Okay, just talking about the risks very briefly, it's not without its risks, as I mentioned. There is the possibility that when the borrow rates for Link are excessively high, it technically could be, it could be incurring a net negative interest rate that you could be earning. And if that stays at that net negative interest rate for an extended period of time, it is possible that you could get liquidated. So you can see an extended period with negative yielding can result in liquidation. However, the likelihood of this is very, very low. Again, you can go and check all of these rates over on these different protocols on GMX to understand how all of that is working. But in my opinion, this is a very exciting way to be able to generate some good yield, especially when markets are moving sideways and even moving to the downside, as we've seen over the past number of weeks. This is not overly complicated to set up. As long as you understand what you're doing in terms of the underlying assets, you're purchasing the GM Link USD token, which is the counterparty token. It is a yield-bearing counterparty risk token for essentially taking the opposite side of the trade to all of those leveraged traders who are levering up positions long and short against Link over here on the GMX DEX. And it's very similar to the JLP example that we have discussed many times here. We actually posted a video about JLP and the JLP Navigator Vault over on Vectus, where you can also earn delta neutral cash flow. So go over and check that out. It is on the channel as well. You can go and check it out and learn more about that particular strategy. But in the same vein that JLP token acts as the counterparty token for all of the perpetual traders on Jupiter, these GM tokens act as the counterparty risk tokens for the traders executing longs and shorts over on GMX. So hopefully you understand the strategy, and then we're using Dolomite to essentially loop up our exposure to GM Link USD and create a delta neutral play to isolate the yield that the GM Link USD token accrues, and that's what we're getting quoted here as the current yield. We're isolating that, we're earning it on a monthly basis, and we're continuing to cash flow day over day, week over week, and month over month. So I hope that was helpful, guys. Drop a comment below this video if you're interested in learning more about delta neutral strategies. If you have any questions, drop them below as well. I'm excited to share these different strategies that we can use at any point in the market for you to generate cash flow and yield, and we'll catch you in the next one.